My fiancée demanded half my business before the wedding. When I refused, she brought in her family, a lawyer, and threatened to break up. So I called it all off. Now she wants to reconnect, but I said no. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name is Jordan Blake. I'm 35, an architect by profession, and someone who's always been more focused on building stability than chasing flashy dreams. For the past 5 years, I'd been dating Naomi. She was vibrant, social, and had this magnetic energy that drew people to her. I fell for her confidence, how she carried herself, how she talked about her dreams. But confidence, I later realized, is not the same as character. Naomi and I lived in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in the city for most of our relationship. I paid most of the bills. She had a marketing job, but was in and out of contracts, so I never made an issue out of carrying the heavier financial load. I genuinely believed in supporting my partner. We often talked about buying a home together someday. I'd been saving for years, ever since college. No vacations, no fancy car, just slow, disciplined saving. I even took on side projects during weekends. So when I finally came across a beautiful, newly renovated craftsman-style home on the edge of town, I knew I'd found the one. I put down the full payment, $612,000 in cash, to avoid interest and secure the home immediately. It was the proudest moment of my life. I imagined starting a family there, designing our backyard, even building a small art studio for Naomi, because she'd once told me she loved painting. But the day I showed her the deed and explained that the house was legally under my name, things shifted. At first, she smiled and hugged me, telling me how proud she was. But later that night, as we were unpacking, she casually said, "You should add me to the deed too. I mean, this is our dream, right?" I was caught off guard. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply explained, "Naomi, I paid for the house entirely. You didn't contribute financially. I'm not saying you're not a part of my life. But this is a legal matter. It's protection. If anything ever happened, divorce, lawsuit, I don't want to lose something I built alone." That's when she turned cold. "You think I'm some gold digger?" she snapped. "I didn't say that," I replied. "But protecting my assets doesn't mean I don't love you." She went silent, but I could feel it. Something shifted that night. 2 days later, she brought her parents over without telling me. I came home from work and saw them sitting in my living room with coffee mugs like they owned the place. Her father, an ex-banker, got straight to the point. "Jordan, I'm going to be blunt. If you want a serious future with Naomi, you'll put her name on the deed. That's what committed men do." I was stunned. "With all due respect, sir, this isn't a discussion for you to be part of." His face darkened. "You think you're protecting yourself, but you're alienating my daughter." Naomi just stood there with her arms crossed. No defense, no sign of understanding. Just this smirk, like she knew they had me cornered. I didn't back down. "I bought this house with my money. No one has the right to demand something they didn't earn. End of story." They left in a huff. Naomi followed, slamming the door behind her. She didn't come home that night. 3 days later, I got served. A lawyer showed up at my office with papers. Naomi was seeking a legal claim for constructive trust, arguing that she had a reasonable expectation of ownership based on verbal agreements, cohabitation, and emotional investment. She claimed I promised her shared ownership multiple times in private conversations. It was absurd. We were dating, not married, no joint bank accounts, no written agreements, and she hadn't contributed a single dollar toward the house. But her lawyer clearly wanted to intimidate me. I hired my own attorney. What followed was one of the ugliest few months of my life. Naomi and her legal team tried everything. Emotional manipulation, text message screenshots taken out of context, even fabricated emails suggesting I promised to share everything once we moved in. But here's where the betrayal truly cut deep. I found out through my attorney's investigation that Naomi had been planning this for months. She'd been talking to a real estate agent friend about potentially listing the house once her name was on the deed. She wasn't in love. She wasn't trying to build a life. She was positioning herself for a payout. That's when I knew it was over. I confronted her. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked her in the eye and asked, "Was this always about the money?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she said, "You should have just added me. We could have avoided all this." No remorse, no apology, just entitlement. We went to court. Her side tried to paint me as controlling, manipulative, stingy, while I presented evidence of full payment, proof of individual ownership, and copies of messages where she admitted to not having enough to contribute when I first discussed the house. The judge dismissed her case outright. Her claims were emotionally compelling but legally baseless. She walked out of that courtroom with nothing, but the damage was done. I couldn't go back to how things were. The woman I once thought I'd marry tried to con me. Backed by her parents and a sleazy lawyer, I changed the locks that same day. Her things were already boxed and dropped off with a courier. I heard through mutual friends that she tried to spin the story, claimed I used her, that I never planned to share anything, that I broke her heart. But the truth has a way of rising to the surface. 6 months later, I got a letter, a handwritten apology, no return address, just a confession that she let greed ruin everything and felt pressured by her parents to secure her future. She said she truly loved me, but she didn't know how to be with someone who had more than she did. I never responded. Today, I still live in that house, alone, but at peace. I turned the spare room into a home office and built that art studio anyway. Not for her, but for myself. It's where I go to think, to heal, and to remind myself of a hard-earned truth. Love isn't about what you're owed. It's about what you're willing to build together. Naomi tried to claim half of something she never helped build, and in doing so, she lost everything. I lost someone I once loved, but I found something better: clarity, strength, and a future that belongs entirely to me. I thought it was over after the court dismissed her claim. I thought Naomi, humiliated and exposed, would finally move on with her life. I was wrong. 2 weeks after the ruling, I noticed strange things happening. At first, it was subtle. My mail started arriving torn open. Packages I never ordered showed up, expensive ones. Then came the social media posts. Naomi had blocked me, but mutual friends sent screenshots of her trashing my name online. She said I stole her home, claimed I was emotionally abusive, even hinted that I was violent. None of it was true, but people don't care about facts when drama is juicier. I lost 2 freelance clients after they told me they didn't want to be caught in the middle of my personal issues. That one stung. Then, it escalated. One night I came home from the gym to find the side of my house spray painted. Red letters scrawled across the garage door: thief, liar, user. I checked the security cameras I'd just installed. Hooded figure. Couldn't make out the face, but I knew. I filed a police report, but without proof it was her, there was nothing they could do. Still, I pressed charges against John or Jane Doe. It was the only card I had to play. The next week, Naomi showed up at my office, not to apologize, not to take back the lies. No, she came with another lawyer, this time trying a new angle. She now claimed she'd invested emotional labor into the relationship, and that I used her as a live-in caretaker and owed her for years of uncompensated domestic contribution. I nearly laughed in disbelief, but the rage simmering beneath the surface wouldn't let me. This wasn't about love. It never had been. This was a calculated campaign of entitlement, enabled by a system that sometimes mistakes manipulation for victimhood. I refused to settle. Again, this time, I went on the offensive. I authorized my attorney to dig deeper. I wanted everything. And that's when the final bomb dropped. A few weeks later, I was reviewing documents with my attorney when she casually said, "By the way, you were right to trust your gut." Naomi had plans to flip the house. I looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" She slid a printed email across the table. It was from Naomi to a real estate broker, dated 3 months before we moved into the house. It read, "As soon as my name's on the deed, I want to talk options. He doesn't know it yet, but this place could sell for way more in a year. Let's make it fast. I've earned this." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Everything. The timing of her demand, the sudden pressure from her parents, the lawyer, all of it had been staged. She'd never wanted the house for a future together. She wanted the deed so she could sell it and walk away with half. I sat there frozen, staring at her words on the page, hearing her voice in my head. That night, I didn't go home. I drove out to the coast, sat in my car until sunrise, just watching the tide come in. How do you process the fact that someone you loved was building an escape plan behind your back? But I wasn't done. With that email in hand, my lawyer sent a formal cease and desist, along with a defamation lawsuit for the social media posts, the vandalism, and the damage to my professional reputation. The moment she got that letter, her social media went dark, but she didn't back off quietly. She started reaching out to my mother, telling her I was spiraling, that I was becoming paranoid, that I needed help. She even showed up at my mom's church one Sunday and cried in front of the congregation. It worked, for a moment. My mom called me, her voice trembling. She said she still loves you, Jordan. She said she's scared for you, that maybe you just need help. I was stunned. This woman wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. I calmly explained everything to my mom. The house, the lawsuits, the email, the lies. My mom, bless her, took it all in. The next day, she blocked Naomi and issued a public apology at her church for being misled by someone who didn't know the meaning of love. Then came the final twist. A mutual friend reached out a few months later. "You need to hear this," he said. He sent me a voicemail Naomi had left on the wrong phone. She meant to call someone else, but accidentally called him and let the message record. In it, Naomi's voice was slurred. She was crying and ranting. "I had it all planned, okay? I was gonna marry him, flip the house, take what I deserved. But he had to be all noble and stubborn. Now I've got nothing. Nothing. And he's still living in that damn house like a king." That voicemail was the final nail in the coffin. I turned it over to my lawyer. The case never made it to court. Her legal team begged for a quiet settlement just to end the bleeding. She dropped all claims, signed a public retraction, and paid damages. Not much. She didn't have much to give. But it was enough for me to donate the entire sum to a domestic abuse shelter, in her name. Poetic justice. It's been nearly a year now. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder how close I came to losing everything. Not just the house, but my peace, my dignity, and my sense of self. Naomi didn't just want half a house. She wanted control. When she couldn't get it legally, she tried to destroy me emotionally, socially, professionally. But she failed. Because I built that house on solid ground. And I'm not giving the keys to anyone who didn't help pour the foundation.